Today on the Nerdy Gritty, we're joined by RockinMrMagic of the original Jeek podcast to discuss EA's plan to relaunch their college football series.
One more world disappears inside it. Just another hopeless addict. Well, that makes a man instead. If the drums don't get you, the guitars will.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I'm your head coach, Fox, and I'm gonna throw stuff because I'm angry.
Playing in center field, we have number 4, Des.
Boo! Get off the field,
Aww.
Des. That's a Simpsons reference.
Yeah, and just wipes one tear away.
That's one of the best episodes of The
Daryl.
Simpsons ever. So today is a bit of a sports-themed episode. It's out of our wheelhouse, which is why we're having our very special guest, RockinMrMagic from the original Jeek podcast,
Who we'll see later.
Who will, of course, be joining us for the Nerdy Gritty. But before that, let's start off with a sports-related topic.
Yeah.
And that is, since we've learned that the college football series is being relaunched by EA.
Don't worry, by the way, this isn't real sports. We're funny sportsing now.
Yeah, we're funny sportsing. If it was real sports, I'd have to get up and leave.
Yeah.
Because I'd be unwelcome even by my own standard. But what we want to talk about is, what could a college sports game look like if they try to incorporate more, I guess, life sim RPG. They've been doing this for a while, actually. I know in sports games there have been, like, you know, you have a character that starts in high school and then goes to a college and then, like, goes through, you're not just playing the game, you are actually simulating the experience of a college football player.
Yeah, it's crazy. They had NFL Manager, NCAA football, and Madden, and so you could create your player in NCAA. Then you could draft that player
to the
into
NFL.
Your NFL team, and then you could have that player run the plays that you were creating as NFL Manager.
I will say it now, and I'll say it forever. Like, fantasy football and Madden and stuff are just D&D, but instead of fighting dragons, you like doing paperwork. What if they took it a step further? What would a true, like, RPG sports game look like?
Here, it has to include school. Obviously, there'd be classes and things like that.
It's a college football.
Right.
They got the two things, college and football.
But what would have to happen is, depending on the quality of your play,
okay,
the teachers would then give you better grades or worse, or like they would give you less homework.
They give you buffs to your intelligence.
Yes.
That you did not earn because you're good at being strong and agile.
They would say things like, "Oh, that was so many touchdowns. Here's 50 extra credit points for your touchdowns."
We all know that in my class, there's a touchdown bonus credit that anybody is able to get.
Anybody.
You just like, most people don't play football, so they don't happen.
It's too bad,
so,
you know.
No, what I want to see is a Persona style, like, time management aspect, which would be fun, I think, because it's interesting, like, depending on how you use your time in Persona, either dedicating it to hanging out with, like, certain people or doing certain activities. It changes the game a little bit. It changes, like, the things you see and, like, the events that take place and the items you get and all the stuff like that. And it would be fun like that, but also I think it could really shine a light on the, like, hectic nature of a college athlete.
You could have an insanity meter, like an amnesia.
It becomes at a certain point, it becomes Doki Doki Literature Club, but it's Doki Doki Football Club.
What have you been up to lately, Fox?
Not much. I've been watching some movies. I kind of finished the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Yeah.
I watched 20 minutes of the remake, and I just was like, I'm not interested in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, usually I'll watch whatever, you know, even if it's not great. But after watching every other Nightmare on Elm Street movie, even the things that I didn't really like about the original series, their absence was just like, oh, this is just boring now.
Yeah.
Like, the goofy Freddy, like, ridiculousness of who he is and his, like, one-liners and stuff. Wanting to make a more serious version of that, it's like Man of Steel. I didn't like Man of Steel very much, partially because they kind of took away the positive, like, like icon that Superman is. I'm
Superman
okay with
is the symbol of
trying
hope.
that.
Yeah.
I don't think it succeeded very well, and I think that's same here where it's like he's very serious in the first one. I get that, but his character has evolved since then, and I really wish they would have involved more of his goofy, like comedic nature.
I also have not been up to much, actually. Just one thing on my list, because I've been spending most of my free time cleaning out my house because I'm having, for the first time and as long as I can remember, an actual in-person D&D meeting.
Whoa!
Yeah, I know. The people who are showing up have all been vaccinated, and so it's like people who work in the medical industry, and so we're like, we can do this.
Nice.
And it's pretty cool, yeah. And I've had my first round now of the vaccination, and
Yeah.
I'll be coming up. So anyway, I've been spending most of my time cleaning out my game room, but I have been doing one thing. I finished Harley Quinn, talked a little bit about it last week. Here's what I'll say. The first 2 seasons are meant to be standalone. They could continue, but there is the end at the end of the final episode of the second season.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that they're continuing.
Right, I think I've seen that too. But it's fun, man. I really enjoy it. It's worth watching. It really is. But all that to say, I continued my DC animated kick and started Young Justice, the like teen-aged animated series.
Sure.
And here's what I'll say: it is equal to. Maybe not quite equal to, but almost equal to Avatar: The Last Airbender to me, where it is clearly geared toward an age group, but it's talking about much more important things.
Like a teen age group, but not like, hey, teens, look how cool this is.
Right.
Like treating them like people.
Where this one is more, where Avatars was more about like the overarching world and world issues and things like
politics
that.
And yeah.
This one is much more what it means to grow up and how, yes, there will come a point in your life when you should expect more from grown-ups. Like adults should respect you more. Yeah, that will come at some point in your life. And if they treat you poorly, it's okay to stand up to that. But at the same time, that means more is expected of you.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I've got too.
Oh, we forgot to do news.
We forgot to do news. Oh no, we're intentionally doing them backwards this time.
Oh, right.
For some reason.
For
intentional reasons.
Just to keep it fresh. That's what it is.
You know what? Let me jump in real quick and just to continue the weird, confusing nature of it, and read you the headline of this IGN article.
Oh boy.
Scientists have taught spinach to send emails when they detect landmines.
Well, guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
You know what? We're done now.
That's
with the nerdy gritty in general.
That's the end of podcasting.
What? I found the best sentence. Scientists have managed to engineer spinach plants to send emails when they detect explosive materials, and social media is delighted. So essentially, what is happening is MIT engineers experimented within a niche field of science known as plant nanobionics, and discovered that, per the report, spinach roots can detect the presence of nitroaromatics in groundwater, a compound often found in explosives like landmines. The carbon nanotubes within the plant leaves emit a signal. This signal can be picked up by an infrared camera, sending an email to alert scientists.
Okay, that's incredible.
It's incredible.
But I'm waiting for the day that the spinach can now rickroll the, the scientists. It's like, oh, this one has 33 explosives. Click it. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh no, spinach!
Spinach!
You got me again.
Well, hey, as long as we're talking about really good news, I'm sure you guys, we talked about a lot last week, have heard about GameStop investors and that going crazy there.
Yes.
GameStop investors are paying it forward by donating Nintendo Switches to children's hospitals.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of the GameStop investors that have been making a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah. So because of that, with this money, they have been purchasing Nintendo Switches from GameStop and donating them to all sorts of children's hospitals around the world.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible, man. If you're going to be there making money, especially since this whole thing is supposed to be like the Robin Hood, from the rich.
Screw you, big Wall Street fat cats, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the perfect, I'm sure not everybody is doing it, but
right.
It is the perfect response. Like it is, yeah, we made money. Like, cause you could, if you wanted to be somebody who's trying to like say, no, they shouldn't do this, or what, they're just doing the same thing. What's the dip? No, this is how you throw it in their face. I made $10 million. $9 million of that is Switches now for children in hospitals. and I still have $1 million.
Or even the other way around.
Or the other way
I
around.
made $10 million.
Yes.
I'm keeping 9. 1 million.
$1
is
million.
for Nintendo
That's
Switches.
a lot of Switches.
Yes, that's incredible, man.
That's probably all of the Switches available.
It's the kind of situation where you might get people saying, "Oh, you're taking advantage of the system. Oh, you're exploiting." But you can turn and say, "Hey, everything I'm doing is legal, and also I'm doing good." Like, get over yourself. Right. You're just mad that you.
Oh man, if
you lost money
don't want
taking
this to become
a
rail against the capitalist system, because I will just you'll talk about ranting about football later, or the NCAA later. Capitalism, that's my NCAA, which they're pretty tied in together, of course. But, yeah.
Fox loves capitalism.
I'm a huge fan. Can't wait for the capitalism series to start back up next year.
All right. Well, we're trying to keep our intro part short today because we have Magic coming on the second half
on
of
the
this,
nerdy gritty.
The actual
He's
nerdy
join
gritty.
us.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. So
you know what? I'm impatient. Let's get to it.
Let's get down to that nerdy gritty.
Yeah.
Hey, before we do that, we just want to let you guys know that you're listening to an edited version of this. Everything you heard before this has been cut down a little bit, just for being a little bit more palatable for the average listener. Everything after this, our conversation with Magic, all about the NCAA football stuff, all the cool stuff going on there, is entirely unedited. You'll get to hear it all. But if you like hearing us banter about what's going on, about the Friday the 13th movies and whatever else that's been going
Nightmare
on.
on Elm Street.
Or Nightmare on Elm Street
movies.
Listen,
that's fine.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Then you can head over to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/DesandFox and become a member of one of our patrons. We'd really appreciate that if you could support us there. You get bonus content from our YouTube channel. You get access to the director's cut of the Nerdy Gritty. You get all kinds of cool stuff that we have going on there. You can go check that out. If that's not a way you can support us, we totally understand. We'd really appreciate it if you can just tell people about the podcast. Go share it. Go let people know, because word of mouth is huge. So please, go tell somebody about the Nerdy Gritty. Go tell people about your favorite podcast, which is this one, right, guys? Please. Anyway, let's get down on the Nerdy Gritty.
Well, hello everybody. We're here at the what do we call our show again?
The Nerdy Gritty.
The Nerdy Gritty. We're getting down to the Nerdy Gritty, and unlike usual, we're really excited to have a guest with us today.
Wait, are you implying that we're not usually excited to have a guest?
Usually we're just no. Unlike usual, we have a guest.
Unlike usual, we have a good guest.
We have somebody
not
we
those
want
monsters
to talk to.
we've had before.
No, unlike usual, we have a guest.
Yes.
We don't typically do. It's something we want to do a lot, and we're lucky enough to have a guest today, RockinMrMagic from the original Jeek podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We are super glad to have you also, because as we let you know, Dez is into sports.
By that, I'm into baseball.
You're into baseball specifically.
Yes.
I am into no sports, and neither of us are into sports games, and we figured this is a cool topic to talk about, but we should have somebody who might have a little bit more of an idea of what we're talking like. So we're really excited, because that's like listening to the original Jeek. You guys talk about video games and all that and sports at the same time, and half of the podcasts I'm just like, okay, I got nothing here. I assume you're right. I don't know. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We're happy. We're glad to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate the invite, and I appreciate the feedback. We're glad that you at least are cognizant of half of what's going on our show. But yeah, we found ourselves, my co-host Unique DNA and myself, we were having these conversations, and we found that there's not many jocks who are also big geeks. Yeah. And after a couple conversations that went to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I was like, you know what? Let's just record it.
Let's record this.
And that's exactly how we got started. This is just conversations that we would have, and we eventually let's put mics in front of our faces.
We used to work together at a church, and we would take up like an hour of our time while we were quote working to talk about these things. And then we decided, you know what, let's do this a better way. So we'll get into EA and just their announcement that they're getting back into the college football game. college football game, I guess.
Yeah.
But before that, we like to talk about just what we've been getting up to, video games and stuff. And so we're gonna ask you: have you been watching any movies or playing any games, or what have you been into lately?
Wow, that's a loaded question because
no kidding.
I've been into a lot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because these COVID streets are really rough, I've been unemployed, so I've had extra time to consume media. So, I mean, not more than 20 minutes ago, I finished episode 5 of WandaVision.
Okay,
Same.
we're gonna stop you right there because I haven't seen it.
Okay,
My wife is working.
I'm not going to elucidate. I'm not going to say a word. All I'm going to say is this: when they announced WandaVision in the whole list after Endgame, I had zero interest in WandaVision. Absolutely none.
Yeah.
It has skyrocketed to my top 5 of Marvel products.
It's
It
so
is
interesting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's probably the most comic book thing that Marvel has done.
Yes, it has. I mean, you can see so many elements of House of M in this, and just the way that it's kind of referencing it here and there, but also doing its own thing within the MCU. Oh, it's delicious.
It's beautiful. Well, let me ask you guys this.
Oh yeah.
How far into WandaVision are you?
I'm current. Dez has not watched the
We
most
watch it
recent
every
episode.
Friday night, so we're just like, I'm going to be caught up every a few hours from now.
He's not what
So
you call a
Okay.
true fan.
I will fight you here and
Okay, so you've seen the first 4 episodes. Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
what I want to say is, for me, as someone who's almost 40, who grew up watching Nick at Night and black and white TV shows, and reading comic books, just the first episode, which was I dubbed the Dick Van Dyke episode, which the set was almost exactly like the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is one of my favorite sitcoms of all time.
He walks through the ottoman instead of tripping over
he
the
walked
ottoman,
through
Dick
it.
Van Dyke style. Yeah.
The kitchen was almost an exact match, but pickups to Paul Bettany. He had Dick Van Dyke's Rob Petrie mannerisms, the way he leans, the way he walked. He had it to a T. Like, they have Feige and I forget the other guy's name now, but they are just knocking it out the park with
100%.
WandaVision. It is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm always worried. Like, for some reason, I worry about the like how much care or how much interest the actors have in continuing to be a part of something so long term, like the MCU. Like, Robert Downey Jr. after 10 years, I'm sure he still liked it, but his interest had to wane at a certain point of I've done this before. And I feel like this kind of show is the exact thing that keeps your actors like wanting to continue to be a part of it, where it's like, you're not just magical superhero, you're a 50s housewife who has to keep this dark secret. And it's like a completely different thing. So I really enjoy just the ingenuity and just how unique it is. And I appreciate it.
Man, you were speaking my language, and you say, as somebody who's pushing 40, grew up on Nick at Night, watched a crap ton of Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore, and the whole 9 yards.
I own all those. I own all those on DVD. Like, I've got that. I've got most of that Nick at Night lineup. Get Smart. I've got those on DVD. The Mary Tyler Moore
Lucy.
Show, Dick Van Dyke Show, the Lucy Show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. So many great shows.
Yeah, it's been wonderful so far, and every week just makes me like, I appreciate the weekly format. Actually, it helps me not binge as much, and I don't really like binging shows. But also, I'm just like, come on, give me another week.
Well, I like it because it also takes me back. Like,
it makes sense for this show.
You kids don't know what it was like to wait every week for an episode, and now, like, okay, I got to wait every week for a new episode now.
Yeah, man, it's good. What about games? What have you been playing?
Oh, man. I've been playing... Well, my primary game has been Destiny 2 for a while.
Okay.
I've been playing some of that with Bubba and Frost on Twitch every once in a while.
Nice.
And Falvo then. But I play on Xbox and PS4 mostly. So I play a lot of Destiny 2. I still jump into Red Dead Online and GTA Online here and there because I got to get my Rockstar fix in. And you dabble in some, what's the other game I've been playing? No Man's Sky.
Oh,
I've
nice.
been playing No Man's Sky, which I really enjoy.
Appreciated the continued effort to fix what they like. I love Hello Games for just like, hey, yeah, we're gonna fix things. Like
we did a bad.
It's okay for a company to really like it wasn't just a mistake. They were kind of lied about stuff, but at the very end of the day, like if they go and put all this effort in and continue to fix it, like that's great. That's what I'm asking for. Like
they messed up, they owned it, and every update has been free. So it's like how can you complain?
Free and an improvement.
That's the big part, is every update has been free, and that's what we're hoping Cyberpunk's going to be doing, is saying, hey, we did a bad, here are your updates, they're going to be free, here's the first DLC, it's going to be free. Like that's the way to hand that olive branch over to your fans that you've disappointed. So,
right.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think,
That's
Fox?
what I've been playing, yeah.
That's good, man. Good to hear. What do you think, Fox? Should we get down to the nerdy gritty?
I think it'd be a good time to jump into our nerdy gritty here. So we are talking about today, as we mentioned before, the fact that EA recently announced they are getting back into the college football game. They are getting back. Okay,
Magic's excited about that.
That's the reaction I want to see from you, because for me it was just like, that's an interesting topic to talk about and not cool. Like I'm not going to play it. So, no, I'm interested to see what you have to say about this. So to kind of couch this in some history here, the college football video game, like it hasn't really existed as far as I know for like 8 years now. I know for a fact that
since the 2014 game.
Right. Yeah. EA, it's been a long while since they have put out a game, and a lot of that is due to the fact that it has been a ongoing controversy that the NCAA does not allow college athletes to profit off of they're not paid, and they can't profit off of their likeness. So
they can't be paid in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
They cannot gain in any
no
way.
benefits, not even fringe stuff.
Yeah.
It's an academic, like it's a extracurricular activity. It's not like a job, despite very much looking like a job.
It's a job, but
they're putting in so much time and effort. Like, so what's interesting about this is that this will be what they've announced so far is that they are going to be including teams, stadiums, uniforms, all accurate, all real life, but they will not include any actual player likenesses or names or anything. We don't know if it'll just be generic names. We don't know if it'll just be numbers and positions. They will not have actual player names.
Or at least that's the plan for now, because this is
now
hugely early in development.
Yeah.
And we know that it seems like the NCAA is in talks of possibly letting players get compensation at some point.
Yeah.
But I guess, as our resident expert here, Magic, we'll turn this over to you.
Okay.
What was your first reactions for this? Like, when you first heard that this was happening, what was your first thoughts?
My first thoughts were, it's about time.
Okay.
Because I'll put it into reference as far as for myself.
Please.
I'm a Michigan native, so I'm from Big Ten country. I'm a Big Ten football fan. I'm a Michigan man. Football is life for me, especially Michigan football. I
won't tell you that we have friends from Ohio then that are big Ohio fans.
That's okay. Those people exist. It's a thing. I have to pray for them. That's it.
Nobody's perfect.
It's just what it is. I pray for them. Lord help them, and I just keep moving on. That's all I can do. And trust me, I know what. Hey, in my family, during college football season, we really don't talk. My mother went to Michigan State. We don't talk during the football season.
Oh.
My uncle is a Wisconsin Badger. We ain't talking during the college football season. After our teams play, then we call each other, and the winner calls the loser and brags about whose team won. It's ugly during college football season in my family. Most of my family have gone to Big Ten schools, so trust me, it's wild. So growing up in that culture, NCAA games come out. I was so excited that you guys invited me to have this. I dug deep into my PlayStation 2 game collection.
Oh.
And I had bought a whole bunch of NCAA games. I thought I had my 2002 copy, but I couldn't find it. So right now, in the background, my 2003 is playing a mascot versus mascot game as we talk right now. Just because I haven't simmed a game in God knows how many years. So excited for that. So what's really interesting about this article, And what says to me, the person who wrote this article really never played the game or isn't big in it was just their assignment.
Sure.
Is that a lot of the things you're describing in that the Verge article has are things that were already a part of the game. So because the fact that they don't allow players to make money off their names and likenesses, they never said names. They always said, so you pick your team, and it's in the broadcaster saying number 4 drops back to pass, he throws, number 11 with the catch. Like, they don't say the names.
Okay.
Names aren't there. Now, what the NCAA and EA did to be slick was they allowed you to edit the players. So you could go in there and add their real names. And a lot of the real names were in the game's database. So that you could say, then when you're playing, it would say, as a Wolverine fan, it would say, Chad Henne back to pass, throws to Hart, throws to Manningham. Like, they didn't put it in there, but they put it in there. You had to manually assign it in there.
I
hate it.
Yeah, no kidding. And so kind of like in WWE games where if you go in and they have like random things that you can pick the announcer to say, like there are pre-programmed names that the announcer can say in there. They had pre-programmed names in there that also just happened to be the names of college football players.
Yeah. So, and what's crazy is unlike the WWE, but unlike the WWE games where you see the name, I remember I didn't even know, like, this was playing in 2002, and I was playing as Michigan, and I said, you know what? Let me just change the last name because I had the character I wanted to see be myself, so I changed the last name to Williams, and then I'm playing, and it said Williams, and I'm like,
whoa,
what? Hold up. And then I started just typing other names in there, and it was saying other names, and I'm like, okay. And I didn't realize it until I had gotten into, I was playing the Dynasty mode, which is like the franchise mode.
Sure,
so
right.
It starts you off with, all the upperclassmen and such. But then when freshmen started brought into the game, into the Dynasty mode, like year 3, then those players that the game created started having names. And they were just randomly generating names. And I'm like, all these names are in the game. You just have to put the names to the players. Now, the reason why there's a problem with the money is because Ed O'Bannon, who was a star at UCLA in the basketball team, he was at like his brother's house or something watching one of his nephews play the college basketball game.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
because they would use their likeness.
Yes, because they
their
use
physical
especially
likeness.
in basketball is really what kicked this thing off. Because in football, they got helmets on. There's
fair.
22 guys on the field. You're not seeing anybody's real likeness. But in the basketball game and in the baseball games, you can see people's likeness because there's so much focus on the individual and there's less players on the field.
Right.
So he was looking at a digital version of himself, and he's like,
interesting.
They're out here making money on this. I don't see a dime. It's my number. His, the year they won the NCAA title, he's like, this is clearly me. Just because it says, the announcer says number 31, anyone who knows basketball who's going to play with the historic team knows who that is.
They're going to know, yeah.
They're going to know. So that's where all this, came about.
Interesting.
So then how do you think they should balance this? This is something that Fox and I are kind of discussing ahead of time is where do you find this sort of balance? You come out with the game and you want to have maybe dynasty teams. You want to go back and you want to have, whatever year of whatever team. Do you think like fans will be satisfied? Would you be satisfied if it looked nothing like X player, but it was their number and their position and their skill sets?
I would be satisfied because I'm the type of person who is patient enough to edit every player and make them look like they're supposed to.
Oh, wow. So you're going to go in and you'll take the time.
I've done that before. So like I'm that type of player. Some people are not, so they probably wouldn't be satisfied, but fans of the game won't care. At least for the first 2, they will be so happy that it's back that they really won't care that it doesn't have the exact players. And
sure,
they'll probably be college football fans anyway and likely to be sympathetic with the fact that these guys aren't making any money and probably like, you know what, I don't, and have the mindset that I don't want the likeness there if they're not getting paid.
Yeah.
And that's how I am. If they're not getting paid, I don't want their likeness there. They should be able to make money off their likeness like anybody else can.
Right. I'm betting there's a certain group of people who would not purchase it if their likeness was there and they weren't being paid. Like, hey, we're not going to support this, and that's we're big fans of using your wallet, using your money to vote for what you think should happen in a game and stuff. And I think that'd be a good thing. What's interesting to me is that I have a bit of a cynicism toward sports games. Mm-hmm. I understand this is fully ironic playing the amount of Assassin's Creed that I play, but I always see like the yearly update of being largely unnecessary because it's just the same game again. But what I've seen in sports games, especially like NFL games, where it's like the game itself, maybe it has a graphical upgrade a little bit, but largely the big difference is updated rosters and updated stats and stuff like that. And if you are not having actual players in your game, then is it just going to be largely like they all have new stats now because we decided, like, and it's just like, how are they going to continue to sell the same game every year?
That's a great question. Oh, wow. In my opinion, if I was working for EA, I would pretty much do it the way I did it before, except for just not have, the likenesses be accurate.
Yeah.
I would have the stats be what the stats should be, what they are rated as, and go from that. And honestly, they didn't care that much about stats because what they would do is like the big conferences, the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Pac-10, now the Pac-12, the big schools, those were pretty accurate as far as to the player skill sets.
You're right.
But smaller schools, they all had it was randomized. Like it was just like, hey, they didn't care.
It'd take a lot of time to update every single player.
Well, the NFL has, I'm forgetting how many teams they have now. I think they have 30 teams. That's a set number that you have to update. The roster is 50 players. Yeah. There are hundreds of NCAA schools.
Yeah.
And one time they even had historical black colleges on the game, historical teams, like hundreds and hundreds of rosters. You cannot possibly update all that information every year. That's insane. So they do it for the big ones. They could do that because that's what most people are playing with anyway, the big schools.
Sure, that's fair, yeah.
And if they're a small school guy, they can pump up the stats individually on their small school and take, Tallahassee State, to against Alabama and act like they would actually stand a chance.
Back on the subject of the players, this is a thought that I was having here, and I think that somebody who doesn't play the game, I think, might have a really good thought on this, but of course, absolutely, Magic, we want your opinion as well. Mm-hmm. But what do you guys think about the problem of shareable content? So let's say you say, I like to go in and intricately make each of my favorite players look like them. Mm-hmm. So let's say somebody does that and then makes it shareable. And so you can now download the entire, let's say, Arizona Wildcats team, and you can download their entire likeness, not because the NCAA or because EA has created that, but because a fan has created their likeness, but is now making it shareable to everybody. Is that something that is the responsibility of EA to take care of?
That's an excellent question. That scenario, unless EA changes something, wouldn't happen because they don't allow you to share your customized roster.
Okay.
That's something that 2K Studios does, which you're used to seeing that with community creations in WWE games.
Sure.
Even in NBA 2K games will have customized rosters you can share. That is something that they do. EA has not done that. So unless they change that, then that's not something that could happen. The only way people would see those customized rosters would be if I created gaming content and posted it on the web. But then again, that's only a visual. That's someone watching it. That's not someone actually downloading
fair use and
Cool. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
That does clarify. I mean, it was also recently announced that in the same article, 2K announced it would begin making NFL games. but the profiting off of your likeness problem, as far as I know, does not exist in the NFL.
No,
so
you can profit.
You are very much
you're
encouraged.
a professional. Yeah, you're not.
Yeah, you are.
You're not an amateur. You know.
Yeah.
Man.
Where as a former college athlete, like in most 99% of the men on my dad's side played Division I football or better. It's a job.
Yeah,
like, it is a job that you're.
Yeah, it sounds like you're only an amateur because they don't pay you. Like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're not going to pay you, so you're an amateur. Sorry, you can't get paid. You're an amateur. Like it's just a recursive
and it's just so the NCAA can keep the money. I mean, that's really what it is.
Right.
I told Fox that I wouldn't rant about the NCAA and
if you go back into some of the earlier episodes, like end of season 2, beginning of season 3 of the original Jeek podcast, you will hear Unique DNA and myself just go off on the NCAA. We detest the NCAA.
Yeah,
they are. It's terrible what they do.
It's predatory and exploitative. You listeners out there, if you don't know just the basic practices of the NCAA, they have TV contracts, they have donors, they have so much money just pouring in, like with Nike and with everybody, all these deals and everything.
Billions of dollars go into the NCAA, and the people who actually generate the interest to watch don't see a dime.
Right.
Not only do they have it set up so they cannot, that even if they were to somehow get some sort of compensation, whether it be like being taken out to dinner or things like that, they can get in trouble.
You're now fined because of it.
Oh yeah. Well, you mentioned that you got friends from that place down south. One of their quarterbacks got in trouble because he sold one of his championship rings and like a jersey he had played in. And he got in trouble for that. And I'm like, that's his ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not just loaning it to him.
That's his ring. And now there have been times where players, because if you play for a big program, you're getting free apparel, you're getting free shoes, you're getting all types of things that are for practice and whatever. And there have been players who have sold that type of memorabilia to make money off of, and I can understand having a problem with something like that.
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
Someone's championship ring, come on, like really? Yeah. Is the guy's not coming every week and saying, "Hey, I need new shoes"? I lost my shoes when he just is selling them at $200 a pop and is getting new shoes from the athletic department. That's not happening. You get one championship ring, and if you need to sell your ring for whatever reason. Sell your ring. You may not like rings. It may be ugly. You may need to pay a bill. Like
maybe you got a legitimate need.
You got
because you're not being paid.
Yes,
it's like the NCAA would rather him keep the ring and be on the street than pay his rent and sell the ring. It's
exactly
it's frustrating, man. Anyway, okay, rant's over. We did it.
Woosah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then, because we kind of touched on this, and I wanted to kind of finish the talk about the players before we moved on to this. But what do you think about NCAA football as a service? So instead of it being a yearly release, it is now a game as service with annual updates, but you pay a monthly fee.
It's surprising to me that they have not gone that route yet. It feels like a no-brainer. It works so well for Fortnite and stuff, and if you had just consistent updates and consistent new content for your sports game, it's weird that they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, like so a player gets injured while all of a sudden their roster in your game is updated and things are changing there as well, but you as a player are paying a monthly fee. So, I mean, again, we don't play the game, so we don't know. What would you think about the game for sports games, this game as a service?
That's a great question. Okay, I've never thought about sports games as a service, to be perfectly honest. You got me on that one. It could work. Your entry cost would have to be low, so you'd have to buy. Okay. You'd need to buy the base game around $29.
Sure,
and then maybe maybe an annual fee on top of that for updates, and if it was monthly, to me, it has to be on the low end, just because updates are going to be small, and especially when it comes to like collegiate athletes. Now, pro is different because people are getting traded and released all the time. So that's a lot more work that a developer would have to do to update those rosters, which are a little limited. And that would make more sense for something like baseball, where you have so many transactions, pitchers, people getting called up, put down between, the AAA, AA, single A, and the majors. You've got constant movement where in the NBA, you got a 14-man roster, and every once in a while, someone gets called up from the G League or sent down and stuff like that. NFL, same thing. 15-man roster. Someone gets hurt, they're hurt. They're on the injury list, they're not on the injury list, that's it.
Sure.
So there's not a ton of movement, and people get traded not as often in those sports, where baseball, you'll see it more often trade.
It's constant, yeah.
And college football, same thing. There's too many teams to keep updated with to even track who's been redshirted, who's, going where. So maybe individually with a baseball game that could work, but most sports games I can't see it really showing a value that would be worth paying monthly for. I think people would rather pay, if they're really into them, I think they'd rather pay the $60 a year for a new game than to pay, $10 a month.
Yeah.
For a continuing access. It'd have to be an annual fee to keep going.
Yeah, I think the difficulty there is that, like with Fortnite, when the Battle Royale mode came into Fortnite and just blew up, after PUBG started it and all that, it was kind of something new. And so since the beginning of that, just about, that's just been, okay, Battle Royales, this is the payment structure.
Yeah.
This is just how you pay for this kind of game. Whereas sports games have existed for 3-4 decades now. And since the beginning, it's been buy the game and play the game. Then next year they'll update it, then you buy it again. And at the very least, it'd be difficult to just, here's what people are used to, and to introduce an entirely new way of doing it, especially one that is seen by a lot of people as predatory to a certain extent, like Fortnite is. You're going to get a lot of pushback. And if you're coming off of like a 7 or 8 year hiatus, that's gonna make it harder too, because people are wanting what they once had.
Yeah,
not something entirely new.
Possibly. I think actually, if you're going to introduce a new way to do it, this is the best time.
Okay.
Because people are going to be more open to different ways of obtaining what they did not have.
That's fair.
So if they present it and say, all right, you're going to be able, let's say, which they won't, but let's say the NCAA says, you know what, we're going to let these players make money off their likenesses, and to do so, you're going to have to pay $10 a month to play X game.
Yeah.
Online, and it's going to be online only, kind of like a Destiny or something like that.
Sure.
So to play it, you've got to pay this much a month, and if you cancel, then you don't have access to it anymore. This would be the time to say, here's how, here's why, and this is being charged so that these players can get the money they deserve for their likenesses. And it would be probably that expensive or more, because it's a lot of players you have to pay depending on how many teams they put into this game.
Man, yeah.
Think of, there's 12 teams in the Big Ten. Yes, I know it's Big Ten. There's 12 teams in the Big Ten. There's 12 teams in the Pac-12. I believe there's 11 in the ACC, and I want to say 11 or 12 in the SEC. That's you've already exceeded what the NFL has.
Sure.
You've got Conference USA, and you've got the Big East, and you've got all these other conferences that you'd have to put in there. And then as EA has to figure out how many conferences are we going to put into this game. And then you have to make sure that you're paying each of these players that are being represented in this game. And then it becomes also a thing, because it's a labor thing now. You have to say, okay, well, it's easier in pro sports because you know who your money makers are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're the 90s and you're David Stern, you're saying, the only face I really, really care about, there's 5 faces I really have to have right. Got to have Michael Jordan's face right. I've got to get Scottie Pippen's face right. There's a couple people you got to get right. If you're going to be paying people for their likeness, you have to get all these likenesses from all these kids from all over the country.
Man, yeah,
and have them scanned into your game and in there properly. And then you have to pay them properly for that. And then you have to gauge who's drawing the money. Because I can tell you the Hawaii players are not drawing the money as the Alabama players are, or the Michigan players, or the Clemson players are. So then you have to figure out who gets what of those dollars based on their draw. So it becomes really, really convoluted.
Super intricate, yeah.
That's
intricate.
Really, something I thought of.
And which is why, in my opinion, in the Northwestern, which is another Big Ten school, they talked about their players, and the school has talked about their players potentially unionizing. And I think that would be probably the best way, because pro sports, they all have players' unions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the best way, and I'm not, advocating got to be pro-union, but for sports teams, it's the best thing to do for them to properly labor, because even though they're contracted, they're essentially 1099ers. They're not true. They're employees, but they're not true employees.
Sure. Yeah. By design.
So by design. So the college sports, if the players are going to actually wield any labor power, that's the way they have to go. And I think gamers, especially with the cost going up in gaming as a hobby, I think gamers would prefer to be like, you know what? I would like them to get paid if they do it, but I may be okay with it not having the actual likeness, because that's just going to drive the cost way, way up.
Yeah, that's fair. There's so many different points of concern you have to think about. Who's getting paid? How much are they getting paid? It's there's so many layers to it. It is not a simple
and
also a simple equation.
Yeah, and also cheerleading. Cheerleaders are athletes.
Yeah,
there are scholarship cheerleaders. There are cheerleaders in the games. Why? So then you come to the point of, are you going to use the real cheerleaders, or are you just going to have computer-generated cheerleaders?
Yeah,
and if you
you're
have
opening Pandora's box.
Cheerleaders, right? And if you go with computer ones, then you have to come up with a reason why you're using computer ones and not the real ones. And then you need to include the real ones. And then are you going to pay the people who are the mascot? And there's
so much
really
to it.
Convoluted. But I think college football can get away with not having the likenesses, because the culture of college football is team first and not individual player first.
Not individual first. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that factor heavily into it. One last question I have for you, and I don't know if you've got anything, but one last question. I want to get really into just the game that they're developing right now.
Yes.
And just as somebody who plays sports games from somebody who doesn't, and having a stereotypical view of they're just releasing the same thing every year with new names and new numbers, that kind of thing. I want to ask, do you feel what are you hoping comes out whenever that comes out? Are you hoping it's let's recreate what we used to have, or should they make sweeping changes? Should there be new modes? What are you hoping comes out?
That's a great question. Oh, wow. I'm hoping for mostly what we had before, with a couple new things here and there.
Okay.
And as you know, as gamers, if there's not any innovation, anything new and shiny in a release, we're not happy. We want
There's no point. There's no point.
There's no point. We don't want to waste our hard-earned money. So I'm really hoping, and also to your point, sports games generally seem, the cliche is that they're all the same thing, just repackaged or shined up.
Sure.
Sometimes there are changes that, as a sports gamer, I get upset about. 1 year is really good. The Dynasty mode, for example, the early 2000s NCAA games had very in-depth Dynasty modes where you could, recruit. Your recruiting was more in depth. You could create your own school. You had a whole lot of deeper rosters. You had a lot more options. And so newer versions, you buy it because the game's great, you want to get it, and then all those cool features are gone. And it's dumbed down, it's harder to recruit players, there are things that are just frustrating. So they'll change things, they'll try things, and you'll be like, I didn't like this one. And that's frustrating.
Yeah.
And so you're running. It's not always. If it was, you'll probably actually have a little bit better of a loyal followership with it if they had kept some of those really good core things and never, not never changed them, but just improved them and never took any of those really cool things out. Because you have a lot of people I know people who haven't played Madden past the Madden 14. And WWE players will mention that they haven't played since WWE 2K14. That was the last good one. And they'll just keep playing 14.
Just because if they don't add anything new, then what's the point?
Yeah, right. And if it's not getting the newer games aren't getting better, why would I go to that new one?
Yeah,
and
which is a perfectly fair.
Yeah, it's
reasoning.
Fair. I haven't bought Madden since 2013.
Yeah,
that was the last Madden I got because the other ones they just weren't good enough, or they took away too many good things for me to keep getting it. So I'm definitely hoping for 80% familiarity. Yeah, 20%. Show me something better. Make the animations better. Make it feel more realistic as I'm doing moves. Because sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen, but there's this clip from NCAA where the quarterback gets turned around, so he's facing the opposite direction as his receivers are. He gets hit on the knee, and he's falling backwards. And the person but before he goes down, he hits the throw button. So the quarterback backwards throws the ball behind his head. It's a spiral, goes 20 yards. The receiver catches it. And it's one of those are you kidding me?
That's a classic play. I don't know what's the problem.
That's a good quarterback, man. I'd hire him.
So stuff like that has driven players nuts over the years. Stuff like that's got to go. So if they can fix those type of things, make it as realistic as they possibly can, I think you're going to have a lot of happy players that are really excited just to be playing with their college teams again, especially because the pageantry, you felt the pageantry, the broadcast mode of the game. You had Lee Corso and Kirk Herbstreit from ESPN Game Day. It felt like you were watching a college game.
Watching a game.
You're hearing the fight songs. The crowd is chanting. The mascots are doing the mascot things that they do. The gator is doing the gator chomp and stuff like that. It felt really, it felt genuine. So you get all that cool stuff back. You smooth things out, and either you pay the people or you keep it so they there's no problems, and a lot of people are going to be happy. Plus, personally, I enjoyed the game engine that Tiburon did for NCAA more than I enjoyed the Madden game engine. So it felt like a more natural, smoother feel of football.
Okay.
Awesome.
See, man, that's why I'm glad we have you on this episode, because cool. That sounds good. No, we really appreciate having you here. This has been a great conversation, and one that we could not have without you. So
absolutely,
we're really glad you're here, and we of course want to give you just a as long as you want to plug whatever you got going on. We'll put some links down in the description. But what you got going on right now that you want to draw some attention to?
So I'm just creating. So I mentioned the original Jeek podcast, which is our main show by my page and group, Jeek Nation. So you can find us on Facebook or Twitter at JEEK Nation, Jeek Nation. Jeek, if you don't know, is Jock plus Geek.
Jock plus Geek.
I was a high school and collegiate athlete, but also watching anime and reading comic books and watching Star Trek and all that during my years, and couldn't have those I couldn't talk about the Detroit Pistons and then talk about Star Trek with most of my friends. So
it's so weird, man, being like when you and I were kids, how separated those two things were.
Oh yeah.
They
did not mix.
TV and movies, they did not cross paths at all.
No.
And then you get guys like you were I played baseball through high school, but like you said, watched anime, played video games, things like that. Yeah, it's totally different crowds. It was crazy.
Did you see the game? Yeah, bro, I saw the game. And then after that I was watching Star Trek, and they'd be like, huh?
What?
Yeah.
You watched.
See the game? Did you play the game?
I remember one of my friends, my boy Chris Cohen. We were on the basketball team together, and when they re-released Star Wars in theaters in '97.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yo, I'm gotta go see Star Wars." He's like, "Star Wars?" I'm like, "You've never seen Star Wars?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Bruh, we going to the movies. Let's go."
Yeah.
Like, and we went and saw all three. I'm like, "Let's go. We doing this, man. You're gonna see some Star
awesome.
Wars." Like,
all right. So the original Jeek podcast.
Yes, the original Jeek podcast, and we also have a Jeek Nation. We also have a pro wrestling show called Breaking Ring Rust. You can check that out as well if you're a pro wrestling fan. We talk a whole bunch of smack, mostly about the WWE product, but
Yeah.
there are times we'll talk AEW and a little New Japan Pro Wrestling here and there, and I'm working on creating some other things for the future, podcast wise, some classic TV related watch along stuff. There's a whole bunch of classic TV I did not know was on public domain. So I might have to have one of both of you watch something with me and just talk about it while we watch and have a good watch.
Oh, I'm down
along.
for that, man.
Sure.
I'm all about that. Yeah.
Some of my favorite Dick Van Dyke episodes are public domain, so I'm like, yes, I can put those on YouTube and not get these. I'm all for that.
That'd be good.
Yeah, so that's really what I'm working on. So I'll send you links for that. The original Jeek podcast, Breaking Ring Rust by Jeek Nation. So if you're out there, if you love sports and you love geek stuff and you want to have a cool place where you can talk about both without people side-eyeing you, the Jeek Nation community on Facebook is a great place to be.
Well, we want to say thank you again so much. While we're closing up here, I also want to say thank you to the band Granger for the use of our theme song, All My Friends Have Wi-Fi, and some of my neighbors do too, off of the album Dear Sam. It's a really good album. Go check out Dear Sam, guys.
Yeah. Also, go check out our YouTube channel. Of course, like always, we have on a consistent basis, daily, we've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla going up, as well as our playthrough of Night in the Woods, which we've gotten some good feedback on. I'm really. It's also a much different game than I expected it to be, and it's been fun to play. It's funny. It's impactful.
Yeah.
So lots of content on there. There's a game that you'll like. I guarantee it.
I do want to apologize. I've bounced pretty hard off of Bloodborne: The Old Hunters.
Yeah, you were talking so much game about playing the Bloodborne DLC, and we have yet to see a single frame of that.
I'm so sorry, man. I got Magic. I was playing this and I beat Bloodborne, beat it on New Game Plus. I've beaten Bloodborne like 4 times now. Never played the DLC. Heard about how hard it was though, but I'm like insanely over leveled, and I'm like, oh cool, I'll take this DLC. It's good. It's good. I'm getting wrecked, man. Yeah. I'm getting wrecked.
Turns out you're bad.
I got to get good, and then those videos come out once I get good.
Yeah.
So thanks again, everybody. Huge thank you to Magic. Guys, go check out the original Jeek podcast or Jeek Nation. Thank you to everyone out there, and always remember that saved games save lives.
See you next week.
My voice sings